Okay, what is up there YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I actually have a video on one of the strangest escape stories from the Cold War. And this story actually comes from former Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia during the Cold War was actually part of the Soviet Warsaw Pact alliance, and as a result, many of those living in Czechoslovakia could not travel to Western Europe, which was controlled by democratic allies, Western allies. And this story here is actually about a Czech mechanic, a former Czech mechanic named Václav Ulik, who actually constructed his own homemade tank in 1953 and actually used it to escape the Soviet-controlled Czechoslovakia in order to escape to West Germany, which was controlled by the United States at this time. Václav Ulik was born in 1917 and actually served in the Czech army as a mechanic in the years before World War II. In the year 1938/1939, Czechoslovakia was actually annexed by Germany, and as a result, Ulik and many of his comrades were actually thrown into a concentration camp and were actually used as cheap labor manufacturing equipment for the German army, and working as a mechanic for the occupying German forces during the Second World War. Towards the very end of World War II, the Soviet Union later took over Czechoslovakia after pushing out the German forces, and the Soviet Union was actually joined by the Czech Liberation Army, who actually agreed that the Soviets would take over. As a result, Czechoslovakia became a Soviet satellite state in 1946. Fast forward to 1953, Václav Ulik and one of his old army buddies actually decided to salvage an old Austrian Sauer RR-7 armored scout vehicle / artillery tractor. This artillery tractor had been stripped of its armor and armaments and was actually being used as an agricultural vehicle on a farm near where Václav Ulik lived at this time. So Václav Ulik took this agricultural vehicle and rebuilt it into an infantry armored personnel carrier. He tried to convert it back into its original configuration as close as he could get it. Later on the 25th of July 1953, Ulik, along with his wife Maria and their two sons, Pavel and Thomas, along with his friend, his army buddy, and his kids, actually took this homemade armored personnel carrier and escaped to West Germany. In order to escape to West Germany, they actually had to bypass the Czech and Soviet border agents. These border agents and the border region of Czechoslovakia were heavily armed and was heavily defended by a multi-layered perimeter of barbed wire, brick fencing, brick walls, and it was also guarded by attack dogs. So this is like the ultimate trap, I guess you could say. But Václav Ulik and his army buddy and their families managed to penetrate this defensive border of Czechoslovakia and escape to West Germany, the Bavaria region of West Germany, which was actually controlled by the United States at the time. He was greeted by American and West German forces as they arrived in West Germany, and they were actually hailed in the press as the Freedom Tank crew in their Freedom Tank. The Freedom Tank itself, as I mentioned, was an old Austrian Sauer RR-7 armored scout and reconnaissance vehicle / artillery tractor that was constructed in Austria between 1936 and 1938. These vehicles were also used in the German army in the Second World War when Germany annexed Austria in 1938. In what was known as the Anschluss. In the German army in the Second World War, these vehicles were known as the Sonderkrabs KFZ-254, and these vehicles were wheel-come armored scout cars / artillery tractors, meaning these were tracked vehicles that also could use wheels. Main armament was one 7.92mm machine gun. The armor thickness was 6 to 15 millimeters, and this vehicle had a speed of 37.2 miles per hour and usually had a crew of between 3 and 6. And these vehicles were used as reconnaissance vehicles and as light armored personnel carriers, as they could carry a small number of soldiers. After World War II, many of these were stripped down and used as agricultural vehicles, including the one that was taken by Vyacheslav Ulik and his old army buddy. So as a result, the Soviets actually gave this man an armored fighting vehicle in the form of a tractor, and he later converted this as close as he could back to its original configuration, and later used it to escape the Soviet-controlled Czechoslovakia with his friend and their families. Oleg escaped to the United States. After his escape in 1953, he later settled in the United States, where he later died in 1998 at the age of 80. So he pretty much escaped Czechoslovakia and lived in the United States. Later on, his body was actually taken back to the Czech Republic, where it was buried in his hometown. And that's pretty much the end of the story of Vyacheslav Ulik and this homemade freedom tank from 1953. And that's basically it. This vehicle actually still survives in the Gilmore collection in Pennsylvania. And this is actually a museum in Pennsylvania that has a lot of old Soviet and American Cold War vehicles from the Cold War, and some World War II vehicles there too. And this vehicle can actually still be seen in this collection under the title of the Tank of Slabony, which is the name that this vehicle has in Czech, or the Czech Republic. So there you have it. This was Vyacheslav Ulik's Freedom Tank, or Ulik's Tank Slabony from 1954, which was used to escape the Soviet-held Czechoslovakia at the very beginning of the Cold War. So what do you all think of this homemade tank? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time, signing off.